Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our City Council work session. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson? Here. Ray?
Here.
Cheatham?
Here.
Lurick?
Here.
Ortega?
Here.
Stevens?
Here.
Platt?
Here. Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is the Sister Cities Foundation update. Representatives from Sister Cities Foundation will discuss the foundation's... I'm not seeing Sister Cities here.
No.
Maybe they're running late.
Foundation's
But no,
goals
it
and
looks like
projects,
on
as
the
well as
inside.
council's policy and expectations. We'll see if they remember they've got this today. And
We just barely had Doug here from the Japanese sister city. So is this
This is the
data
foundation.
with the foundation? Or?
yeah, this is the foundation, not
Okay.
the Japanese Sister City.
I don't have that.
Well, we have historic preservation.
Yeah.
So we
I don't even know why I
will
bothered.
move past that right now, and we'll move to agenda item number 3, a Historic Preservation Commission update. Representative from the Historic Preservation Commission will discuss the commission's goals and projects as well as council's policies and expectations.
Good morning, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Jim Inglesey. I am the assistant planner for the city of Pocatello as well as the historic preservation liaison. And we have here Nick Nielsen, who is the chair of the commission. Nick?
Thank you. Mayor Blatt and City Council members, good morning. I have presented this report for many years, but never in a mask. I think at some of the commission meetings that we have had in the past, it probably would have been advisable to wear a mask. As far as recent accomplishments, we have continued design reviews of exterior alterations in the downtown Pocatello Historic District. In the fiscal year 2020, 19 applications for certificates of appropriateness have been reviewed by the Commission, with 11 in calendar year 2019 and 8 so far in calendar year 2020. An additional application is currently being reviewed by staff, which the Commission will review at our September 16th, 2020 meeting. The majority of certificates of appropriateness that the Commission reviews is for signage. Other applications that have been reviewed include the following: the newly refurbished Buster Brown neon display that will be located at the southern corner of West Center Street and Union Pacific Avenue, and the storefront modification at 123 North Main, the Soncab building, restoring an original front door and installing tile work and wood frame display windows that will more appropriately reflect the original historic storefront. As far as current and upcoming projects, we are continuing our partnership with Old Town Pocatello on projects to improve and promote the downtown Pocatello Historic District. We are also continuing our partnership with the Relight the Night Committee to restore and relight historic neon sign displays in the historic district. Planning staff attends the Relight the Night Committee meetings on behalf of the HPC. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have unfortunately had to cancel our planned Memorial Day open house at the Brady Memorial Chapel, as well as our annual Stones to Stories event. The Idaho State Heritage Conference that was to take place in Pocatello this year was also rescheduled for September 2021 due to the pandemic. However, we have been able to dedicate a significant amount of our commission meetings and additional time to brainstorm and coordinate fundraising ideas to preserve and restore the Brady Memorial Chapel. Here are a few events and projects we have planned for the remainder of the year for the preservation of the Brady Chapel. The Before All Hallows Eve scavenger hunt event at Mountain View Cemetery on October 24th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. In addition to the scavenger hunt, the event will include a food truck with fair-style food, gift cards provided by Taste Retreat for the first 200 individuals who complete the scavenger hunt, and information on the Brady Chapel will be provided. Donations will be accepted by cash, check, or card, and 20% of all food and drink sales at the food truck will be donated to the restoration work for the Brady Chapel. Social distancing and masks will be required at this city-sponsored event. The Veterans Day Open House at the Brady Chapel is scheduled to take place on November 11th, 2020. We are in the process of completing the Brady Memorial Chapel Capital Campaign Plan. This plan will outline the history of the chapel, past and current efforts to preserve it, and future plans, including estimated costs for complete restoration of this historic structure. It is our hope that through close collaboration with the City of Pocatello, local banks and businesses, members of the community, and grant programs, that we can raise the needed funds in time for the Brady Chapel's 100th anniversary on Memorial Day in 2022, so that it may be rededicated by the city in memory of James H. Brady and for any and all appropriate public use. When restored, the Brady Chapel will be available as a venue for funerals, small weddings, and various other receptions and events as a means for the upkeep and maintenance of this historic structure. We are continuing our efforts to coordinate with staff on identifying potential historic districts and buildings throughout the city that could potentially be listed on the National Register of Historic Places. On behalf of the HPC, staff is in continued contact with the Union Pacific representatives in an effort to allow us to register the historic Greyhound Bus Depot on the National Registry of Historic Places, as well as restoring the building so that it may accommodate public use. We are continually discussing the possibility of additional fundraising events and public outreach opportunities that may be planned in fulfillment of our mission, goals, and efforts to preserve and protect historic structures and districts within the city of Pocatello, with a focused effort for fundraising aimed at our current project, the Brady Chapel. Thank you for this opportunity for the Historic Preservation Commission to provide an update on our continued efforts to preserve the history, culture, and identity of Pocatello. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, Rick.
Has the bus building lease been renewed?
I am not aware. Jim, are you
The
aware?
last I heard from Union Pacific, it's still in review under legal. So, and that was the last update I had is about 2 weeks ago.
But that's under review with UP. I don't believe that they've got it back to the city yet. So that's not our legal department, it's Union Pacific's.
Correct.
Did you say that Brady Chapel scavenger hunt is from 10 in the morning until what time?
5 p.m.
5 p.m., okay. That's
Yes,
really
we
not very-
extended the hours this year in hopes to get more people and also to spread out people
Yeah.
because of COVID-19.
Any other questions? Chris?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate the fact that you're exploring fundraising options. I appreciate that because
Thank you.
obviously there just isn't enough money at the taxpayer level to fund every worthy project. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I know it's not easy to put together those plans and then knock on doors and make phone calls, and thanks. And then I'm also would be interested in just hearing your perspective about how work on the river and preserving and publicizing the historic downtown area, how do you see those working together? I mean, because the river really is part of the history of Pocatello in its current form. It's a sad reminder, but nonetheless, it is part of our history.
It is part of our history. We have not specifically focused in the HPC Commission with regard to the river.
Right.
I have seen some beautiful pictures of how the river used to meander through the city. And I think it would be a great opportunity to explore working together with those groups and agencies in how we can possibly promote activities with regard to historic restoration together. As of yet, we haven't done any, but I think it would be a great idea.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you. Yes, with regard to fundraising, it's been on our mind for some time, but we're finally focusing and trying to get into some concrete, definite plans to earn some money, particularly to get the Brady Chapel restored because of the significance of that building in our community.
Any other questions?
I just
Nick?
want to thank them for all the work that they do, and I know you've had a few really tough decisions and challenges in the last year or so, thank you for all your time and efforts, and it's a pleasure to work with you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to work with Linda also. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll move to agenda item number 4, Planning and Zoning Commission update. Representatives from the Planning and Zoning Commission will discuss the Commission's goals and projects as well as Council's policies and expectations. You're up. Talk about timing.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. I'm Matthew Lewis, senior planner, and also staff liaison with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Today we'll kind of bring you up to date as to what the commission has done over last year. Today I have with me Vice Chair Kaylee White, and she'll just, I'll just have her go through this. If you have any questions at the end, try to answer those as best we can. So appreciate your time this morning.
If y'all don't mind, I'm going to stand. So my name is Kaylee White, Vice Chair on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm here today just to give you a little bit of an update. So current Planning and Zoning Commissioners are Dorothy Ricks, our Board Chair, Jack Moore, Shin Q Rue, Jill Kirkham, and then myself as Vice Chair. We currently have 2 vacant seats on the Commission. One we've had since March and another since July. To date, the Commission has reviewed 8 preliminary plats, the same number as 2019. In comparison, the Commission reviewed 11 preliminary plats applications in 2018. There's been 5 rezoning requests with findings of facts and recommendations provided to the Council. 1 application was reviewed in 2019 with 4 rezoning applications that were considered in 2018. We've received 3 annexation applications. They were reviewed with findings of fact and recommendations submitted to Council. 1 annexation application was reviewed in 2019 as well. We have received 1 conditional use permit application. It was considered with a decision rendered, same as 2019. 3 conditional use permit applications were reviewed in 2018. City staff had an in-depth training session with the Commission on the evening of January 22nd, 2020. And then some of our goals for the upcoming year include, due to the current state of events, the American Planning Association Idaho chapter will be holding their annual fall conference virtually at an extremely economic price to the city. This is a rare opportunity for training of Commission members. The content will be on the app for a full year, so we will have access to it at any time. which I think will be very beneficial to commission members. So, Matt, do you have anything to add?
I'd just like to add that I really appreciate, the commission members. It's takes a lot of their time and so forth. And the big concern that we've had is as noted, some vacancies and have had some difficulty filling those. I don't even think we have any applications in currently. So if you're aware of anybody that may be interested, that'd be great. And then I'd just like to, I sent the council members also the invite to the APA. If you're interested in that, please let us know. We can get you registered. It's very economic. And another thing that's important is it's not just for those days that they have. You can get onto the app and it's for an entire year. So it could be a good training session just to see kind of the planning world and some of the things going on. So I would encourage the council members to just let us know and we'll get you registered. It's very, very economic. Other than that, that's our report. Do you have any questions of myself or Kaylee?
Questions, council?
I don't have a question. I just want to say thank you so much for your willingness to be on the commission and do what is often a thankless job. So thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Would it be possible to have somebody send us just a short info notice on, because I don't know anything about what the training that you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll resend it.
Oh, all right.
And they had the link on there as far as just you could see what the sessions were and so forth. So
Okay.
Yeah, and if I'll resend it.
I probably just didn't have a receptor site.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
now I have heightened interest.
I know I heard from Councilman Cheatham on it. And like I said, if it was an issue of, well, I got something going on for those 2 days or something, just note that you can get onto that app and it's for an entire year, so you can do it at your leisure.
And then do you have any desired attributes for people to fill these vacancies? So that, I mean,
Yeah, we've had over many years, we've had various, and I personally think it is important to have people that have different backgrounds. We've had construction persons like Mr. Satterfield. We've had realtors on there and so forth. And so I think that kind of that mix is important to have on the commission. Right now we have one gentleman that's a professor at ISU. And so, yeah, I think that's important. Just have that background. So again, if you know of anybody, please encourage them to apply, and they can do that with the mayor's office.
Any other questions? Super, thank you. I know it is a very thankless job, and so thank you very much for all that you do.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
We'll move to agenda item 5, welcome resolution presentation. Representatives from the Human Relations Advisory Committee will give a presentation regarding a proposed welcome resolution affirming the city of Pocatello is a welcoming and inclusive city that celebrates diversity, promotes equality, and fosters respect for all residents. Members of the committee would like the city to consider adopting a proposed resolution at a future meeting. Good morning.
Well, good morning, everyone, council members and Mayor Blood. Indeed, it feels awesome to meet in person and then discuss this resolution after a long time. I'm Rituraj Yadav, Chair for the Human Relations Advisory Committee. This is Ms. Eileen Harris, Board Member for the Human Relations Advisory Committee, and Ms. Laura Judkins, City Liaison to the Human Relations Advisory Committee. Before I really move on, I'm also an international undergrad senior, majoring in Earth and Environment Systems and Finance at ISU. And today we are here to talk about the Pocatello Resolution of Welcome. And before we start on, I would like to explain about the history or how we came to this process. It was back sometime last in November 2019 when a resident of the Pocatello, Dr. Larry Gebhardt, he brought this idea to the HRAC. We thought that's an excellent idea to end the inequality, and we were impressed by that resolution. Yet it required some changes and edits to be done. But because of the pandemic and then the movement, it got halted somewhere in the middle. So HRAC re-picked up on that, and then the HRAC member, Ms. Eileen Harris and Dr. Maliga Oak, they redrafted it and then was presented to the HRAC board. And the resolution was passed unanimously by the board. The resolution, the main purpose, if we talk, is to affirm the city of Pocatello as a welcoming and inclusive city that celebrates diversity, promotes equality, and fosters respect for all residents. As we all know, 2020 has been challenging. We live in new normal. I would say usual things that we used to do are sometimes now undoable. But something that still hasn't changed among us is the discrimination and inequality present in the community, or the systematic inequalities. So I think to end that, and to all those Black Lives Matter movements and other movements that has been there to fight for the right, or the human rights that was given back way long in the time, yet is still fighting for it. I think this resolution is highly important. It will be one of its first kind of strong actions that city will take towards addressing this problems present in the city. For that, I would like to make 4 different cases why we think that welcoming diversity, equity, and inclusion is important. And the first case is moral or social injustice case that asserts that each person has value to contribute, and that we must address barriers and historical factors that have led to unfair conditions for marginalized population. Racial equity, that refers to what a genuinely non-racist society would look like, where the distribution of society's benefit and burdens would not be skewed by race. So I think that would be the first case on why we think that's important. The second is the economic case, and that is based on the idea that the organizations and countries that tap into diverse talent pools are stronger and more efficient. As we all know, that economists see discrimination as economic inefficiency. And certainly the city has been doing an amazing job. As an international student, I can really count on that, and how mayor's office and the council members have supported me and my 4 years journey here. So I think with this resolution, we can legally form those actions that has been taken for long years. The third case is the market case, that states that organizations will better serve their customers if they reflect the diversity of their market base. A dramatic demographic shift is underway in the US, which will be majority non-white around 2043, according to the Census Bureau. So again, given to that, I think having this resolution ahead in the time will serve us to a greater purpose in the later future. The fourth is the result case, is that diverse teams lead to better outputs. As we all know, that when you have people from diverse backgrounds, we have different ideas and different insights to a problem that could be more efficient and less time consuming. So again, having this resolution in the place would really serve to our purpose. Before I move on to other points, I would also like to say that this resolution, although drafted by 2 of our board members, this has been presented to the community members, and we have sought their advice on what they think is important. This was presented to the student government of the Idaho State University last Wednesday. They really support this idea. They look forward on further comments on how they can support us. And then also before that, Dr. Larry Gebhardt presented this to the Bridges, to Great for Head, Global Pocatello, and AACP. They have shown their support in this resolution. So I think what I want to say is that this indicates the support of community members and their ask for this resolution to be passed through the city council or the city to adopt it. And that's why I also have Miss Eileen Harris here. She was recently in one of the board meetings with a board called Anti-Racism Board with Mayor Blood in it. And I would like to have her present some insights on that and how we can use this resolution to end the inequalities.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. I'm Eileen Harris, and as Raj has mentioned, I'm one of the board members for the Human Relations Advisory Committee. And on August 24th, Monday, August 24th at 1 p.m., we had a board discussion with Mayor and other community leaders. And we had discussed some ideas of how we can move forward in combating racism in our city. And one of the things that we do need to remember is that people think the general idea of racism is that it's a physical action. But really, racism can be manifested in so many different subtle ways that's not easily detected. And so we feel like through the communication or through the discussion that we had on the board on the 24th of August, we feel that there are a lot of voices from underrepresented groups and communities that are not being heard. And it's exhausting and it's becoming tiring, and we feel that with this resolution it will help for us to acknowledge that we have more similarities than differences. But because that there are differences in our community, it's nice to acknowledge them and to celebrate those voices and to amplify those voices and to come together to make changes that will be equal and fair for everybody. So I believe that this resolution will also help us to move the things that haven't been moved in the past along. I know we often hear the remarks or comments like, the Martin Luther King March was amazing, we should do more of this. Or I feel like our city has a great community feel and we should do something more. It always boils down to the statement, we should do more. But now is not the time for us to think of ideas or make ideas. We should make ideas happen. And so I feel like this resolution, in accordance with more of the meetings that we'll be having to combat anti-racism, will help us to have those uncomfortable discussions with each other, but also help us to make changes so that way Pocatello is the wonderful place that people know it to be.
So in the end, I want to say is that this resolution really acknowledges and reflects the value of the city of Pocatello. And I want to say is that as an international and a people of color, I would say the city has done some amazing jobs acknowledging and celebrating those voices. And as an international student, I can really form to that. So this resolution will actually affirm those actions taken and make it in a more legal and systematic way. So I really thank the supports of the council members and then Mayor Blatt himself through this resolution. And if any questions you have, could address.
Okay, cool.
Roger.
How do you, first of all, if you read our thing on our deal over here, there are several words that resonate with what you're trying to do in terms of inclusiveness, growth, respect, those type of terms that we've put out. But how do you envision a resolution having legs, so to speak? Because it can languish just on paper. We approve it and it sits there. How do you see it having an effect other than a declaration at one time and it's recorded? How do you see it being utilized?
Well, first thing, how I saw this resolution into action. When I presented last week to to the student government at the ISU, what they said was that if this is something city adopts, then why not this is something student government can adopt it? They can develop a resolution based on this resolution and pass it in the ISU, and the ISU could follow that resolution. So that is something I saw directly in the community, the first impact after we talked to them. So that's the first thing. Second thing, how I say this resolution can work is that this will lay as a base foundation towards ending the inequalities. HRAC can partner with all the community members on the basis of these resolutions towards a collaborative effort on ending the inequalities and discriminations that we have in the city. And so I would say those two major points and currently how I see we could do this.
Okay. I just, there is a difference about having something that is just printed and having something that's alive. and I would want this resolution to become something more than just something printed somewhere that somebody can reference. It needs to be something that becomes alive.
Sure, yes, Mr.
Chris?
Yeah, I kind of along those lines, I personally would because I know, having sat in meetings, I know that there's a strength of conviction around taking action, actually turning word into progress. And I think nationally we've had that problem. We're coming out of a phase where we've talked this issue to death, and we've done that here locally too. So I would like to see in this resolution some kind of action statement saying, that the committee will do something. We'll host community conversations. Whatever those might be. And the other thing that I would like somehow to be referenced is, in my experience, as a person who's done however many MLK marches and, this march and that march and the other thing, as a white person, even if a particular event is sponsored by non-white people, somehow the whole permission to have those events is always has felt as though it's sort of controlled by the white system. And that's not saying that that's intentional or it's, with malintent, but we've lived in a predominantly white system. And so predominantly the system is controlled by white people. And so I would like to have this next effort that you take be really about, to put it bluntly, I'm not saying this well, but rather than have white people tell people of color how they feel, because that's white people's perception, I would really like to flip that. And again, not with a blame or shame kind of mode, but having had two opportunities to be in the minority, one as a sighted person and one as a white person, and to be in those situations is illuminating in a way that I don't even know if I can articulate. And so I would really somehow like us to say that this is going to be from the non-white or the unheard, whether it be disabled, whomever, from the perspective of those constituencies to the predominant, whether it's to the predominant constituency, whether it's differently abled to abled or whatever that would be. And I'm saying this really badly, and I apologize for that, because it's just a fringe kind of idea.
I think I get your concern over there, and truly, I think after we get this past the HRAC board, as you have worked with us and you have sat in our meetings, as you know, we truly acknowledge all the voices and all the parties involved in the decision makings, and I think certainly we can work on doing something like that and see what we get out of it. And I think that would be a great idea to look into.
I think we need to start hearing honest stories from the people who own those stories. Not talk about the theories but let's hear the stories from the people who own them. Because that's the only way, if we're in a majority population, that's the only real way that I can think of to begin to create empathetic understanding versus theoretical understanding.
True.
Thank you, Heidi, and then Linda.
Is this an action item?
No, yeah,
It is listed
It
as
is.
an action item?
it
Okay.
is.
I think your committee has done a fabulous job. I appreciate what you have done and the work and the effort you have put into it so much, and the outreach with the community and everything. And I just think it's a really great document that you have got ready. And so I move that we instruct staff to bring this forward for our consideration at a future meeting to vote upon.
Second.
Okay, and Linda, did you have anything?
I also just wanted to acknowledge all the work that you've done. I know that this started back when I was still the liaison, and so I'm excited to see it move forward and be completed. And by completed, I mean just that the resolution is completed, but I see this as the beginning of work to come and a foundation, as you said, to build on. And I think it's a very exciting thing for us to do. I mean, we can say that we're doing all these things and that we are all these things already, but to have it formalized in a statement, to proclaim that to people and then be able to build on that into action and into actually doing things in our community. I commend you on all that work, and I'm excited to hopefully be part of it and to see it move forward. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Adamson and a second by Lurick. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson?
Yes.
Lurick?
Yes.
Bray?
Yes.
Cheatham?
Yes.
Ortega?
Yes.
Stevens?
With reservations, because I would like to see us making a statement that we support further action. I've seen too many resolutions become dust gatherers, but I will vote yes, but with those reservations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank
We
you.
will be looking forward to seeing this in the future, at a future meeting, probably October-ish timeframe, probably. So, super. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you for everything that you do for us.
Thanks. Have a great day.
We will move to agenda item number 6 is a police union quarterly update. Members of the Pocatello Police Union will be present to give the council an update of their activities for the past quarter. Go. What does gray mean?
Slow.
Slow.
I'm smiling.
Val's not.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Just
Good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Thank you for having us here today. Some things that we've been involved in the community.
Val, we'll need you to identify yourself.
Oh, Val Wadsworth with the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 13 here, representing the Pocatello Police Department. And this is Michaela Lacey, Vice President. Sorry.
That's all right. You're good.
Okay, some things that we've been working on. To Give the Cops the Bird is underway, and we're looking forward to partnering with other members of the community, businesses, to raise money to help provide turkeys to the food bank and people in need coming up on Thanksgiving. Also, the Handcuff Hunger fundraiser's been moved to spring due to the COVID epidemic. The Goatee Beard fundraiser will be starting on October 1, and that's going to allow for funding for the Secret Santa program. So we're starting to make that push going into the fall. Some other information, we're very fortunate to have the support of the community. We want to thank the community and let them know how much their support does mean to our officers and support staff that we have. They come up to us on our calls and personally want to thank us for what we do and for being there for them. And ultimately, that is why we're here. With the rapidly changing times, and particularly in this year with all the chaos across the country, we're very fortunate to have the community that we have and the support from them. They come to the station, they drop off snacks for us, and again, want to personally thank us for what we're doing. We do appreciate that. Words can't express it enough. We currently have 2 officers in the field training program, and hopefully they'll be moving out soon and going out on their own. We have 2 more scheduled to start in the next month or so, and 6 other openings that we're trying to fill. We're in a kind of a constant training mode, and it does pose a difficulty trying to find training officers that are going from trainee to trainee to trainee, and we've been recruiting more training officers as they become seasoned enough and experienced enough to take on those roles. Our community has a very diverse and well-trained and dedicated group of police officers, and I think the community recognizes it, and we appreciate that as well. I believe that recruiting and maintaining a professionally staffed department is still critical to us upholding the department mission of community commitment. So that's what we're working to maintain and continue on, that we give that service to the community where they will come and thank us for what we're doing. Okay. That is all we have at this time. I thank all you guys for your support as well.
Linda?
I wanted to thank you in general for all that you do in the community, but also very specifically for recently helping us finalize the diaper drive from last year.
That's right.
Due to all
Yes.
kinds of events, mainly the pandemic, we were never able to, the winning department for our employee diaper drive was the library, Marshall Public Library, and part of their prize as winners was to have a party, and that never happened until a couple of weeks ago. We finally made it happen, but all the prizes were donated by the police union and the fire union, and so I really appreciate that, and I'm glad that we were able to complete that, and now it's time to start working on the next one. So,
Yes.
thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Oh, Chris.
I appreciate, obviously, all these kinds of above and beyond community efforts that you make. But increasingly, I'm aware that every day that you show up for work, the risk factor to police officers personally is going up. And we're fortunate here, but we're not immune.
Right.
And so I think these kinds of above and beyond community gestures are important, but I am personally very interested in looking at how we are structured in the department, looking at how we may be inadvertently incentivizing people to leave by having them top out as patrol and then, qualifying for another rank, and then that they may have to go elsewhere in order to be able to actually function in that new rank. And so I'm very, very interested in supporting the police, particularly the boots on the ground, in a material way. I think we need to put our money where our mouth is, and I think sometimes actions speak louder than words. We tried to do that as a council, I believe, with equipment and vehicles and additional officers, but I think we need to take a comprehensive look, and I hope that can happen.
I agree with that.
I agree with Chris. We need to start looking at how we can retain our experienced officers so we don't always have, we don't have a revolving door, because it's a safety issue, not just for you in the uniforms and wearing the badges, but for the public as well. And so I'd be very interested, and it's a very personal thing to me to look at this and try to figure this out.
Yes.
We appreciate it.
Any other questions? I would like to take just a minute. There's a YouTube video that went out. Would you please publicly thank the officers that were involved in that for their professional actions? They represented the city and the department and themselves absolutely amazingly, and so please let them know how much I appreciate that. They were incredible.
Corporal Lacey's team. He was not working that day, if I remember correctly.
Vacation.
I'll let him handle that.
They did a great job. That was one of those ones where I hate sometimes being off work because we read the shift synopsis and you want to be there to help, and it makes it even worse when it's something like this, because that's kind of, I feel like that's my forte, to be there for that, and I wasn't there, but they did amazing, and those guys are middle officers. You wouldn't call them young, but they're not like overly veteran, I think they're probably 5 years, maybe 5 years or below, and they did a great job. As far as the YouTube guy just kind of interfering with this one, just trying to bait him into something, and I think that something that is going on beyond the police department and kind of what we talked about, I think, is that it's really special. It's special that we live here and police where we live. Even if we live in Bannock County or Chubbuck, we're all interacting. So how we handle ourselves in uniform really reflects what happens to us outside of uniform too. It's not unlikely for us to run into somebody that we interact with. And so, as far as that YouTube video happened, I'd be glad to meet with that guy if I had the opportunity. I'd love to talk to him, just one-on-one. I'd be glad to meet. I love that stuff, because for us it gives us the opportunity to highlight how we are as a department and what we do, and I think it makes us. I think that's kind of one of those things that we just take pride in. We take pride in the fact that we do things the right way. We don't want to. The biggest fear, I think, for every officer in this department is to violate somebody's rights or to take somebody to jail that doesn't need to go. I think that's one of the special reasons why I work here and wanted to work here, and I think it kind of highlighted that in that video. So.
They were absolutely incredible, and my understanding is that video, because the guy decided to run a big thing, my understanding is there are a number of police departments throughout the country that have seen that and have requested that video so that they can train their officers on how to act, how to represent, and how to do things right. And so just thank you very much. Make sure that your team knows that we appreciate what they've done. We had hundreds and hundreds of calls and emails, and I watched that, and I cannot find one thing that they had done wrong. And so thank
I
you
kept
for
waiting for
representing. It's incredible.
explosion, and there wasn't
Yeah.
any. You guys, they were tremendous. So.
It was incredible. So thank you very much.
So I have a question regarding that. You know, these auditors,
Yeah.
whatever they want to call themselves. What are you doing? Or do you have any specific training
Yeah.
for the new people? I mean, it's easier for a seasoned officer, I guess. I don't know. Anybody can push somebody's button, but I'm just wondering, because this is becoming a thing, and clearly this person is targeting our police department,
Right.
or says he is anyway. So I was just wondering what the plan is to teach officers, especially the newer ones, on how to deal with this specific type of. Is there something going on?
Yeah, so just last week I just finished a verbal de-escalation program. There's another officer that finished a couple weeks prior to that. Inside that program, it actually talked about auditors. They have a whole set. That's a law enforcement's new thing about it. On top of it, once this came out, the big thing that he was upset about, that his key trigger was running the license plates.
Right.
We got provided case law. It's U.S. versus Diaz. It's from the Ninth Circuit. We could run any plate. Those things all come out through our emails. So if something comes up, unfortunately, a lot of our job is reactionary, right? Something happens, we have to kind of react and learn and do better. So, being able to put that court case out so everybody knows, because usually what happens is these auditors come out, they do it, and then somebody else piggybacks off the same thing, and they just keep trying to push the same issue. And so now that is aware, but based on that de-escalation training, we are scheduled to put forward a de-escalation training, and there is a component in that dealing with the media, as well as people filming us or just trying to entice us. Just a quick snippet of it that I think is really amazing is it talks about that the audience isn't there, you create the audience. So the fact that how they handle themselves professionally, they create the audience to say, everybody's waiting. The title says whatever it said, rogue cop goes nuts, or whatever it is, right? And everybody's waiting for the cop to go nuts, and it doesn't show up. And so in that sense, our officers did a great job of taking the audience and showing them, hey, this isn't the way. And so even though they weren't technically trained in it, they did exactly what it was. Right. But we will have training coming forward, I think before the end of this year, where everybody will get it. So
Yeah, because if somebody clicked on that to see some cop's head explode because he loses it, they were really disappointed. It was really disappointing, I'm going to say, if that's what they were waiting for.
To go along with that, one of our brand new officers just out of the FTO was on scene there and handled himself wonderful.
Well, the unfortunate thing is you do watch that, and we received a ton of hate mail. We received a number of phone calls from people that were just beside themselves at how our officers reacted and acted, because we needed to be embarrassed by them. And I actually talked to a few people about that and straightened them out that we would much rather give them an award for the way they acted opposed to reprimanding, because they did everything exactly right, which bothered obviously hundreds of people because they're waiting for some police officer to lose his mind and do something that didn't happen. That gentleman happens to be from, I think, originally from New Jersey, moved to Colorado, and now travels around the country just to incite or push or find police officers and push them to do something that they shouldn't be doing. So what they did was just incredible, and I just appreciate it, and knowing that we have the officers that we have. So thank you.
Thank you.
It was really, really good. Unbelievable. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will move to agenda item number 7 is the proposed September fiscal year 2020 budget amendments. Finance staff will present to council detailed information on proposed fiscal year 2020 September budget amendments for the public hearing to be held on September 17, 2020.
Here's the budget that we're currently in. Okay. Because they keep going from 20 to 21.
Yeah,
so I'm confused.
and we'll probably have one more to.
Okay.
Yeah, we
But this
get
is
to
for
work
the
it right.
existing budget that we're operating on?
Yes.
Not the one that we just, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, good morning, Mayor and Council. Ashley Welsh, Chief Financial Officer. I have Bonnie Schrader, Deputy Chief Financial Officer, up here joining me. So yes, these are for fiscal year 2020. So we're in the last month of our fiscal year. And just a little reminder on budget amendments. We only do budget amendments on items that had additional revenue come in that we weren't planning on. So we're gonna go through all of these. We had 44 amendments that affected 13 funds. The notice was published in the Idaho State Journal on September 2nd and September 9th. We're having the work session today. And then we will have the public hearing next week at the council meeting. And at the end of the meeting, there will be the ordinance consideration. So general fund had amendments totaling $379,680. We're just gonna go through these really quick. We had, the mayor's office had a reimbursement for a conference that had to be paid up front. Then we had coffee with the mayor that was sponsored by Phil Meter. And then $1,000 for the mayor's walking challenge. The building department had a bond claim that they had to pay out to a customer. So we got the additional revenue from the bond and then we just had to pass that on through. So we just needed additional authority for that. Planning and development, we received a grant for the Bonneville Neighborhood Reconnaissance Survey. That was $6,500. So this is for data collection. It's phase 1 and 2 of that project. And there was also a training that they were reimbursed for. I had the full name in here. Let me see. Oh. Let me see if it was in here. So it was for training.
National Alliance of Preservation Commission.
Thank you. I was like, I knew it's on here somewhere. Okay, and then Human Resources had some COVID expenses. They are just listed there. Some of these are smaller. We are submitting these, we're trying to do this on a weekly basis now, submitting for reimbursement from the state. They also needed a Surface Pro for telework and Zoom meetings, which was $1,583. And then access to the business management training of $1,599. And that gives access for all kinds of webinars to be used across the city. And those are all covered by COVID funding. The non-departmental, we have the small business assistance grants that the council had approved in a previous meeting. We put $250,000 in there. The potential is we're going to have to amend again in November or December for any additional, either money that wasn't spent or additional funds that the council wants to use for that purpose. The police department traded in some of their older tasers, so they were given $9,815. They're gonna use that money to purchase new tasers. And then the fire department had some COVID expenses that are listed there. So that is reimbursed by the COVID money from the state. They also had a donation to purchase operating supplies of $150. There was ladder truck repair of $8,514, and that came from an iCrimp reimbursement. Then there's the peer support course, which they offer courses that people pay for those courses, and then they're able to use that for additional training. So that's the $3,900. And then the Healthcare Coalition Conference reimbursed $1,943 for travel. Then the Animal Services had the TNR grant, which was approved a little while ago for the $50,000. We did have to build that into the budget though, so that they could use that for food, equipment, and medical services as needed per that grant agreement. And then Parks received IFT grant of $20,000. I believe it was two $10,000 grants. And they're using that for some work that water did. So that money is going to be transferred over to the water department for work. The other fund amendments total $1,627,261, and we'll go over these really quick. The street fund purchased a railroad parcel
It's part of their old property that they're trying to sell right now. There was a water asset on it, so they had to purchase that parcel for $10,000 from the railroad. So water department ended up purchasing it from street, but that part isn't going to be part of the sale. So they just had to purchase it to make sure that all that was cleaned up. They used reserves for that. And then they had to repair the roof on the new building. You'll see this also in sanitation because that building is split 50-50 between street and sanitation. So street fund needed $40,155 and they were using reserves to complete that roof repair. And then per council guidance, we are sending $250,000 over to Fund 70 for the completion of fiscal year 20 projects. And that is the street federal aid fund. So that was for all of the projects that are going to be completed this year, and you're going to see that again in November, December for additional projects and hopefully additional monies that are going to be coming in from the state. The Recreation Fund received grants to purchase an excavator, $15,000, and grants to purchase trail equipment from the Portneuf Health Trust of $69,742. They also received a grant for the municipal band, which puts on the concerts over at Ross Park every year. They received $2,200 to purchase new, I think it was for, a woodwind for the municipal band. And then the airport received a grant for, it was an IFT grant and a BISLine grant for phase 1 of the origami art display, which they've talked to us a lot about. So that should finish out phase 1. And then the library is using COVID funds for permanent glass barriers out there for $12,898. We also have Science and Environment received some grants and is also using some of their reserves to complete the Cusick Creek project, Pocatello Creek project, source water protection, and then the purchase of some stormwater monitoring equipment. And then here's the other half of that Public Works Annex roof repair, the $40,155. That's to repair the roof out at the new building. And then the ambulance fund, so there's kind of a crossover. You're gonna see this again in December. We're trying to set our budget and then the county's trying to set their budget. So this difference is $52,281. It's what the county had approved that we hadn't built into our budget just because of the timing. And so we're just building this in now so that they can use the money provided by the county for operations. The Wellness Fund had some COVID expenses that are listed there. That is covered by the state COVID funding. And then you're gonna see the other side of the street federal aid projects. So we're getting the money from street, but we need the authority to be able to spend that. So this is for the remainder of the fiscal year 20 projects, $250,000. And then the Airport Construction Fund received some FAA grants. So they're going to complete their airfield improvement, hoping to complete it this month. Again, some of these you might see in November, December, because they're just kind of rolling over into the next fiscal year, and those aren't really planned for in the budgeting process. CDBG has the COVID resident assistance, which they did bring to the council for when they were changing their plan. So that's $264,672. And then the Zoo Improvement Fund, they were actually gifted. Western States had some equipment and some labor to complete the ADA path out there. And so with the accounting of everything, we have to kind of accept a donation and put that on as a capital item so that we can record it. So that is why that is on here. We didn't actually receive any money, but we received in-kind services. So just kind of a weird accounting entry that we have to put on there. And then you can just see all of the total budget amendments by fund. We had $2,006,941 in budget amendments. And those, like I said, are all covered by additional revenue that we weren't expecting when we were building the budget. So we will do the public hearing next week on the 17th. And then after, at the same meeting, at the end of the meeting, we'll again go over the ordinance for consideration. Are there any questions about those?
Questions, council?
Okay.
That was really clear, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. All right.
Okay.
Let's get this out of here.
Sounds great. Thank you very much. Find my way back to. All right, here we go. We'll move then to agenda item number 8 is the Zoo Idaho revised 20-year master plan. Parks and Recreation staff will be present to review the final draft version of a revised 20-year master plan for Zoo Idaho and to seek council's input and direction regarding the plan.
Good morning, Mayor Blatt, council members. Peter Pruitt, Zoo Idaho Superintendent. I do have a zip drive with the master plan if you guys would like to see it. I can put it up, or we can move forward without the zip drive.
Yeah, put it up.
Okay.
For citizens at home too, Peter.
Pardon?
For the citizens at home too.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So this is our master plan that we've been working on for the last few years, and I do have to apologize. We have moved forward on some of these projects without the official approval of the master plan. So what we've done here is we've gone through, and it took a few years before I even started on the master plan, because you kind of need to look at what we can do within the facilities, what are some advantages of the facilities, what are some complications and some challenges within that facility. So jumping in right away really isn't the most prudent approach to it. And we did, prior to even beginning the master plan, on several of our events, we would have some flyers and questions put out for the community to see what they would like done and what direction they would like the zoo to go towards. And so we started collecting that information before even writing it. And of course, within our community, we need to make a very realistic plan that can actually be accomplished within the 20-year time period. And we need to look at what is cost effective and cost realistic at the same time. And this is just kind of this is the site location of the zoo, where with the master plan that we had when I first started here, we also incorporated a section of Lower Ross Park on the outside of the zoo. I felt that we did not need to expand into that area, and it is an absolutely fantastic area. So to me, it's more important that the community can still use that section of Lower Ross Park instead of us taking it. And we've got many areas across the zoo that we can improve on and build in. Of course, some of our older exhibits, we've been able to modify and renovate a few of those. Our black bear, cougar exhibits will need significant renovation. And of course, a lot of the guest amenities, which we tend to lack across the zoo. Shade structures are super important, especially on that upper level. It can get very hot during the day. And this is our big, 500 feet in the sky approach to our master plan. And it doesn't really get into specifics because we just want to look at the overall picture of the zoo. And we kind of broke it down into different areas throughout Idaho. Our homestead area is kind of that transition between humanity and the wild, starting with the barnyard and kind of moving out into the wild. And the marquee exhibit for that, of course, will be the black bear exhibit, which we, thank you to Connections Credit Union, we'll be able to start that capital campaign project next. And then we move into the mountains area, which includes our elk and mule deer. And then, of course, another really important exhibit is our wolf exhibit. And thanks to Western State Cat and their donations on our ADA path, we actually now have the opportunity to work on the wolf exhibit as well. And up top ends up being our two major sections. When you look at the upper level, we're sitting right on top of a lava bench, and it's really hard to put any type of structure there. Some areas, the bench is right there on the surface, other areas 4 feet down, and especially trying to get utilities to them make it very hard to build up there. So we're looking at these expansive exhibits that take advantage of our view, especially when you look south into the gap. And of course our wetlands, which is an ongoing project, and every year it gets better and better. Our vegetation is growing in, and soon we should be able to bring in trumpeter swans. And of course, with some amenities, we do have an idea eventually of putting in like a multi-use campground. If you go to Zoo Boise, they do have a smaller camping section that they use for overnight education classes. We'd actually like to enlarge that and have actual RV sites that is adjacent to the zoo, and they can use the zoo during open hours, but then of course it's closed off at night. And circulation pathways are super important. We need to get people through the zoo comfortably. And then, when we look at our phasing, we have to look at high priority areas versus quick successes versus, like these long-term projects phasings. North American river otters, not a priority long-term, but finishing off the gift shop and really working on the black bear exhibit. Those, of course, are major priorities, and the pathways as well. That's it. So what we're looking at right now is we open it up for public comment, and we greatly appreciate all the comments that we've received, and we do feel that the master plan addresses the majority of the concerns from these public comments, and we're looking for the next step, as in bringing it, excuse me, to council for approval.
How many visitors do you have annually? And how many of those are discrete visitors versus one person coming 50 times?
Oh, so we don't really necessarily break them down into repeat visitors. We do have our members, and they do use the zoo frequently. We run right around 27 to 28,000 a year, and basically 7 days a week, May through August.
It shouldn't be too difficult to get, because I'd be interested in a number of discrete individuals, in addition to just
overall numbers,
comprehensive numbers, which that should be relatively easy to gather that data. Because I think when we're thinking about expending community resources, which is obviously what tax dollars are, I think as we prioritize these large projects, I think it's important to be able to look at them in relationship to each other and look at them in terms of community impact. And I think it would be helpful. And that's not a gotcha question. It's
right.
Literally a request for data,
yep.
Because I think it will be helpful.
Okay, Linda.
I just have to say, great mask.
I like it too.
Oh, my Bruce Lee mask.
It's very fitting.
Why, thank you.
What does the ADA path money?
Yes.
Relative to, I was noticing that there were a fair amount of comments relative to accessibility.
Yes.
And so talk about the comments relative to that.
With the ADA path, we now have the ability to get all people up to the upper level in a relatively easy, convenient way versus a nice steep haul. And we are within that path. We're also working with the Rotary clubs that along that new path, we'll be adding 3 additional rest areas and shaded areas. So that's every time we work on a pathway or an exhibit, we want to make sure we have multiple rest areas throughout that area.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions?
I did, on a more serious note, want to thank you for all the continued work that you're doing. And I know it's been challenging, as with all our departments. The pandemic has affected how you operate and what you can get done and everything. But it's been exciting to actually be able to come out to some ribbon cuttings of new things happening at the zoo, even with the circumstances we're in. So thank you for figuring out ways to move forward. And I mean, I was excited about the plan when you presented it, but it looks like these revisions are all good things and allowing us to do even more. So
thank you. And I mean, it helps too when we have these successes within the zoo, knowing that we really are going in the right direction with the master plan and for the community. So, you know, every day is an exciting day for me as well.
What kind of revenue loss have you experienced thus far? I'm assuming there's some impact.
Yeah, so we are sitting at around 30% loss this year. Our attendance, April and May was a tough one because that's when we look at all our field trips. And for Rachel in her education programs, she was actually sitting at the beginning of April, 3,000 students and adults reached ahead of her last year's total numbers. So that was 3,000 above last year's numbers, and we're rolling into the busiest season for her, and COVID just wiped that out. June, we started to see a rebound in our attendance. At July, we were 1 below last year's July attendance, and at the mid-October, we were actually 400 above last year's attendance. So I think once people realize that we were still open, and it does help when the community stays local and they start using their own resources within the community, we don't ever want to go through another summer like this, but it was kind of nice to see that we did have people visiting the zoo towards the end of the summer.
So, Mr. Mayor, I have to admit that I'm, with all the changes and so forth to the money from the state, you know, what it can and can't be used for, I'm still a little foggy on the specifics. Is there any opportunity for any of that money to be used for situations? I mean, the airport, I know that was different money, but you know, transit, I think, got money, again, a different source. But I'm just wondering, you know, whether there's any opportunity with the new money to look at departments such as this that rely on public income.
That's a great question. You're not the only one that's foggy in the state on how this money can be used, and so don't feel like you're alone on that one, because it changes often. The last I heard, unless Chief Gates is here, and he may have heard something different because he's been in the middle of the discussions as much as anybody, but the last I heard is it's for expenses, not replacing
revenue.
Loss or expected loss to any departments and stuff. And so is that still the case, Chief, as you understand it? I mean, like I say, it's changed weekly.
Yes, that is correct. Right now, it's related to any expenses incurred directly to the response to or in dealing with COVID. It's not as a replacement.
Yeah. So we asked about it with parks, our summer programs with parks, and the answer was no there, and so that hasn't changed. And
So I'd like to just throw it out and have it on the table that, you know, since we're able to use, I think, we're able to use some of that money to cover expenses that we might otherwise have had to cover with our budget for next year, that we just stay open to the idea that if we can supplant some money that we would have had to spend using the state money, that we be open to the idea that come farther down the trail, we may have to look at some of these service departments, like recreation, like the zoo, et cetera, and be prepared to support their budgets, given the fact that through no fault of their own, they're experiencing, 30% revenue loss is significant.
Absolutely. No question. I think that's wise to do, so.
I will add that to my list.
Okay. Sounds good. Anything else for Peter? I just want you to know Peter has taken a number of exhibits and been able to replace and or build new at a very, very economically priced thing. And so the zoo is looking great and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Peter. Okay, then we'll move to agenda item 9, Idaho Rebounds Municipal Small Business Grant Update. Discussion regarding the implementation and administration to process applications received for the Idaho Rebounds Municipal Small Business Grant will be held. So we talked about this about a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I guess. And needed some more information and some stuff. I will tell you, there was the idea that we would have the CDBG group look at these first, because they are used to looking at grant applications and stuff. With the way that the budgets are run, they cannot, because that is a federally funded program. And so we'll need to have this run through our finance department probably. It would be my suggestion with finance and maybe somebody legal looking at it as well before we can submit these applications and grants. Yes,
Would there
Chris?
be an option to constitute a committee specifically to review these grants? That would be, temporary or ad hoc. I understand we have this recruitment problem, but this is kind of a high interest, could be a high interest community impact opportunity. And I'm just wondering if there might be some former CDBG board members or other community folks who could be constituted as an initial review committee to take some of the workload off our finance department.
The simple answer to that is yes. The more in-depth answer to that is my concern would be waiting to get a committee put together rather than getting it moving, for one, and for two, there may be some businesses out there that would hesitate in asking if they know members of the public are going to be reviewing these before they get submitted. And so it does give us, if I need to get to it, it does give us the steps that we need to take. It has page 2 really of the packet is where most of that is, and I've got it. I've got to figure out how to.
Oh, where it says create municipal.
Yeah.
Submit post standard application.
Yes.
That stuff. Yeah, that is literally one page after the table of contents.
Yeah, it's there. It gives us what we need to do, and it gives businesses what they need to do as well to daggone it. Got it electronically, but I can't figure out how to get back to it electronically. There we go. Thank you. Now I've lost everything I had up, but that's okay. So yeah, right, just the next page, the procedure for the city. That we create the program, which we've agreed it would be a good program for us to have, so we will create that program. Submit the grant to the state through the controller's office there. And they've got a standard application that the businesses need to fill out, which is provided as well. And then the city evaluates the municipal small business, make sure the application meets all federal and state requirements, and then submits it. The city submits it, and then the state gets back with us and then we submit, or we administer the expense to the small business.
So will someone in finance be the designated person?
Yes, well, that would be my suggestion if the council so desires, and I would just work with Ashley and get that person and figure out who that person would be. That would initially take these in, review them, make sure that it meets what they look at. Probably wouldn't hurt to have somebody in legal be designated to look at those. We would like a quick turnaround, so we'll have legal look at those and then have our finance department submit it to the state, is what my suggestion at this point would be. The state will look at them, let us know if they pass or not, and get back to us. And allegedly, the state is moving quickly on these.
Would there be a way to sort of have a two-tiered process the way some organizations do? So for example, somebody in the mayor's office could do the initial review to make sure all the boxes are checked and, all of that stuff is done, so that by the time finance gets it, they're literally looking at the financials to make sure that they meet those criteria. I'm just concerned about being able to move quickly to help businesses out, because they need help now. And even if the state's moving quickly, that may still be a relative term. And I'm just concerned about overloading a specific person or a specific department locally, and B, also creating a facile procedure so we can.
Sure. There again, it's legal is, well, legal. Finance is what I visioned anyway. They would bring the application actually to finance, where finance would that's what they would be doing, is looking at the check boxes. Because I don't believe finance is looking at it, they're not asking, and I would have to double check, I can't read the small print here, but I don't remember them asking for any P&Ls and all of that stuff from the businesses.
So if finance isn't actually reviewing the finances of the application, does finance need to be the receiving department?
My thought process is they would, because the state will be reimbursing or sending money to our finance department, and they need to be in the loop of who and what is happening. That's my thought process.
Is there any administrative funding included in this? In other words, could we...
It talked about that a little bit.
Could we have someone who is part-time move to another level so that we're not overloading? So that we're not overloading, and then create the reimbursement for that person out of this COVID procedure we're doing. Now, because I think it allows for us to recoup expenses that we incurred related to COVID, and it looks to me like if we created a part-time position to oversee this, we're not overloading staff, and we're meeting the need for a short term. We've got one person that's dedicated to it in that way, and we're functioning without having to recoup expenses in another way.
If one person is the local expert, then we don't have four people who are having to confer with each other, and it can save a lot of time and stress, frankly.
Yeah.
We can make this so hard nobody will apply.
Well, that's the thing is we want to make it easier, and so the fewer people that it goes through their hands, the better off we are.
And so if we had a person who was brought up to speed, trained, did this, then we wouldn't be intruding in other departments and their functions. And they could be roughly related if we had to do a part-time hire for finance for this or something.
I think the reimbursement should come through the COVID funds we received.
Yeah.
Rather than through this one.
Well, but it's in this formula, isn't it?
Well, I don't see anything in this that allows reimbursement directly.
Well, then we could rededicate some of our COVID funds.
Yeah, that's what.
That's what we would need to do.
I thought we were setting aside a certain amount and taking another amount. It's that other amount that we would pay from, isn't it? Isn't this?
Well, what we would do is, depending on the council's desire, how much money, and we had talked about I think $250,000 through October 1 to help small businesses here, and then in I think December we'll probably end up having to have another budget amendment to accept more or so that we can account for anything over that from October 1 because it's a new fiscal year. Rick is right. We can take the expenses, the time that they spend on this, and get that reimbursed through all of this. This is one pot.
But the other side of the pot.
But this is the other side of the pot that we can pull that money from. By all rights, the council could say, look, the city's not going to do anything. We're just going to dedicate $1.9 million. That's what we got to this, and then not get any of the reimbursements for or submit, but I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend helping our taxpayers stay whole as well.
But I think that.
But yes,
the balancing act here is what makes us most efficient to get this to businesses. It might be that we spend a little more on our side so that we can distribute more effectively on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fair amount, as I'm looking at this, there's a fair amount of, checking and scanning and collating and sorting and, that wouldn't, it wouldn't take a, step 17 employee to do, and yet.
I'm thinking that if in tax season the tax companies hire people to do it, there ought to be somebody that could grasp this and get going on it.
What I would request the council just have me work with finance to see if there's somebody there and if they have the time. If they don't have the time, then I think it'd be wise to hire somebody that would.
Yeah, from all the reports we've got out of finance is that they're stretched right now anyway. So
sure.
I'm just saying this pull a lever in another way. It can work under the auspices of finance, but be a adjunct to it, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think speed is of the essence to get this thing moving. And talking with some folks at the Chamber of Commerce, we have businesses throughout our city that are hanging on by the skin of their teeth. And they've heard about this program and they're anxious to get involved. Those who have not taken other COVID.
Did we make a decision on what the grant amount is going to be when we talked about it last?
Yeah.
I think there was a motion.
Well, that's the whole amount, but how much can they apply for?
That is not
That's a state decision. They can apply. The state will make the decision of what they get.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that we decided what the limit that businesses could apply
Well, in
for.
some of the parameters, one small business could take the $250,000 theoretically.
Well, theoretically, but I think the state controller wants to have some say in this. And so
I think a small business is 500 employees or less.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, we're just the middle manager.
Yeah, okay.
Local manager of this.
Okay, so we don't have to make that decision. Okay.
But I agree. I think speed is of the essence, and if we have somebody in finance that we can get this going this week, get it out so that Monday they can start taking some applications, that'd be great. If they get overloaded, I would like the authority or the ability to find communicate to you that we're going to get a part-time person that can run this. I don't know how long this will last, and so we would definitely want to hire a temporary
You
person
could
to do
probably
that.
find somebody at ISU
Probably could do that.
who's looking to, for something temporary, who's
Yeah.
got some experience in grant writing or something like that, some student.
My concern there is if we go through the hiring process,
Right.
we're 2 to 4 weeks out.
Well, that's why I would like to see how many applications we get, and if finance really truly gets overwhelmed by them, and then if they're getting piled up, then I would love to be able to get somebody. Probably it's a great idea, a accounting student from ISU, a grad student or something that needs.
Are some of the, I don't know this, but I would think some of the accounting firms here have people they already know
And they may
don't
have-
want to work full-time, but they work tax season or something like that. And they could say who's very astute. I don't know when an emergency situation and a temporary thing, you have to go through the same protocol as hiring otherwise.
Well, you probably don't. But, if
It
we
could
were,
be a word of mouth. This person looks like your person, not get in contact, make one phone call, and if that person, you kind of recruit to this position.
Yeah, Chris.
Well, I'm wondering, for example, if we don't, since this really isn't necessarily high-level finance, we may have a part-time person who works in another city department who deals with, to some degree with budgets and forms and all of that. And I think if we increased an employee we already have, if we increase them temporarily, I don't think we would have to do any hiring process. We could just do that. And so my suggestion would be, department heads could tell us, yeah, I have this half-time person and they're really on top of detail, and, they could be trained up to do this, and then we could just, in a matter of 48 hours, we could probably pull that off.
Well, I think that my first swipe would be finance, because they've got to get it and bring it in, and if they don't have it, then I'm happy to look outside and happy to see if there's anybody else in the city, happy to see if there's an ISU student. I would honestly focus more on finance. ISU may have a intern that would be more than happy to do something like this. Give them an opportunity there. So
How are we getting word out to the businesses
well, we
that
will.
this is available?
We've put out one press release, I believe, and we'll just ask Logan to get another one out and start pushing it a little more on social media and stuff. We do have a number of businesses that have reached out to the state, and the state has said, well, the city got a bunch of money, they should be giving it to you, and
Right.
then we've told them just wait because we don't know what it takes. Then they sent this out. Now we're having the discussion. So if the council's okay with that, I would run full steam ahead with it and get news out and see what we get coming back in and see where we go with it.
And obviously the chamber's going to push this, right? And
I
so-
talked to the chamber board about it 2 weeks ago. So they are aware that this program is coming.
Because if they can pump it out. And would you just mind keeping us apprised?
I think that would be absolutely appropriate, and so yeah, I think that's what we definitely need to have, so that you know what's out there.
Right.
I think we'll have an initial push, and then I think it'll kind of ease off a little bit, because there are some restrictions if they've taken advantage of other grant opportunities and things like that. It's going to put them in the back seat, and so.
And also just in terms of the process, so when people call, we,
you can direct them in the right spot. Absolutely. Right now, until you hear differently, I would say if people call and talk to you about it, I would say talk to call the finance department. We will. I'll wander over there after we're done here, and we'll get a point person put into place, and so whoever it is, they can contact that point person.
And that'll be part of,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say that'll be part of the press release, and the social media is letting the businesses know who to contact
Yeah.
at the city.
Yep.
And I think Ashley's going to be on vacation if I'm.
She is on vacation now. She came in from vacation. She'll be back Monday.
So she, okay.
But I'll go over and talk to Bonnie. Bonnie's here. She's hearing all of it right now, and I'll go and talk to her as well. We'll sit down and, for the lack of, if Ashley is not back there, which she may be still, we'll get a person appointed and go from there.
I think that's a good plan, and the sooner the better, the faster the better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, if we're good with that, then that's what we'll do, and we'll just, we'll get an email out, so we'll get a press release put together, and then we'll get an email. But right now, I plan on telling anybody that talks to you directly, I would just say contact finance,
Okay.
and they'll get you pointed in the right direction anyway.
Okay.
And then we'll get you, also get you information of exactly who it is and what we're doing.
And are we gonna, something will be on the city website as well?
Yeah.
I mean,
Logan will-
I'm assuming
Logan
we can
will-
put something on the city
Yeah.
website that says there's a grant, the state grant, the city's
Mm-hmm.
accepting applications for state grant. I don't know what the wording is.
We'll push it out to everywhere we can. We'll get
Okay.
it on the website, and we'll get it on through the
Yeah.
chamber and stuff like that, so.
And we need links to the application in that city website.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it needs to be as easy as possible. People shouldn't have to search for papers and forms. They should just be able to click it, and it should hyperlink them. And so Logan,
That's why we have a
So I'll sit,
IT guy.
what I'll do is sit down with finance, IT, Logan, and we'll get something put together and get it out to you. And it should be, like you said, make it as easy as we possibly can. So if you're good with that, that's where we'll push it. And
Okay.
this might be a living, breathing thing, and so we may have to adjust it and change it. And so don't hesitate if you see a glitch or you see something that we need, please contact me so that I can get it fixed quickly.
Yeah.
And stuff. I think we need to move as fast as we possibly can. I agree with that. So, okay. Any other discussion, questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Then thank you very much. With that, if I am right, this was our last, just getting back to it now. So there we go. Okay. Thank you very much, council. Thanks for being here, and we are adjourned.